Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us for Politically Incorrect Knitters. I'm Deplorable Knitter, and I am joined, as always, by my wonderful co-host, Ann Pinkava. Hi, Ann.
Hello. Week's episode is sponsored by Lynn at Chicken Lady 5 Arts, and the promo code is PIK deprogrammed 20 for 20% off your order. And she has this brand new yarn, also named Deprogrammed, after the lovely Carrie Smith's podcast. This is on her Surima sock base, which is an 80% superwash, 20% nylon blend. And it's absolutely beautiful. I mean, here, let me focus a little bit. Oh, and also I should say the PIK deprogrammed promo code is only good for the month of April. Next month's promo code, starting the 1st, is PIK Mayday 20.
Awesome. That yarn is so pretty. I have an order coming. I got my shipping update like yesterday, so I won't have it till the weekend probably, but it's exciting.
Yes, this one is going to be used for a future giveaway. So I'm just sitting here and petting it for the moment until I have to send it off. And speaking of giveaways, our other giveaway with Cody Schlegel's book, Odyssey Tale, and this lovely yarn right here. The winner is Brittany Sudell. And I commented, it was a YouTube comment, and I commented on her post, but otherwise, Brittany, if you could contact us through our email with your address, and I can get this sent out to you.
Yep. And in case you don't know, our email address is politicallyincorrectknitters@gmail.com. So all one really long word, politicallyincorrectknitters@gmail.com. So get in touch with us so we can get you your prize.
Yes.
Okay. So do you want to start off with knitting?
You go ahead and go first, because I know you have much more than I do.
Yeah, so I was telling Anne before we started, but I mentioned it, I think, that my stepbrother who got married last year, he and his wife are having a baby. It's going to be a little girl, and they're going to have it in June. So the shower is this coming weekend, but it's in New York City. So I can't go because logistics, and I don't know. I've been trying to figure out if they still have all the vaccine requirements. I think most places dropped them, but I know New York City was pretty big on it. So I'm not going, just, difficult. So these are all the things that will be going to my new niece. This is a little bonnet, and it was a free pattern. I don't remember what it's called. I still have to put the ties on it, but yes, there's a little bonnet. And then to match the little bonnet is a little cropped sweater with a little, here, let me hold it this way, with a little ruffle on it. Matches because they live in Miami. So I wanted to make things for her, but also they live in Miami. Right. So this is a cotton linen blend from Hobby Lobby. That's what this is made out of. And then kind of coordinating with that is a little newborn dress I made her. She's Cashmere Junkie on Etsy, and this, or on Lovecrafts. I got this for free off of Lovecrafts. So this is the Wee Penny. I altered the bottom. It's not supposed to be as ruffly as it is, but I mean, come on. When you're named for a little girl, let's have some ruffles, shall we? So that's one little set I made her. And then I was with the kids at Target, and they picked out a little lovey for the baby. They're going to write a little note and say, this is from us to you, from our little cousin. It's very cute. So while they were picking that out, I saw this hat, the sun hat, and it has all of these multicolored hearts on it. And I was absolutely in love with it. And it's reversible, so it can be coral colored too. But all of these little hearts. And so I found this pattern. It's the Flutter by Tee by Kitty Winks Knits, and it's got all of these little spots of color on it, and I just thought that was so sweet. And it, the way the colors go in the bottom of the shirt matches the hat, and then the little specks kind of match the hearts, and This is a bigger size. This is like a 6-month size. I also got this pattern off of Love Crafts. But yeah, so I've been having lots of fun knitting it. This is Hobby Lobby yarn. This is their sparkle cotton, and it's really pretty. And once I wash it, it'll plump up, and it's because the sparkle makes it a little scratchy, but it'll plump up. It'll be so pretty. So that's what I've been doing. As you can see, they're not quite done yet, but I have until tomorrow night, Thursday night, to get them ready to give to my parents for the shower. So between now and then, I can put sleeves on a tiny cardigan and weave in ends. So, it's not a big deal. So that's what I've been doing. I've been making baby knits for the rest of my life. Oh, and also, I've been very, very remiss on weaving in ends, but gloves. Fingerless mitts are going to be going into testing. So for those super busy skeins of yarn. So keep an eye out for that also. And that's what's been going on here, which I think is plenty. What do you have?
That is plenty. I mean, I feel kind of bad because we've been doing so many air views lately and not like regular episodes like these. That's like, oh yeah, I should have a lot of knitting to show. I'm like, not really. I have the one quilt is still sitting there. I am on quarter 3 of that. I won't show that. You've seen it. But it's like, okay, if I'm that close to finishing the 3rd quarter, that's fine. But also, I've made a couple more of those Papa hats because those don't count for anything. There's just so many. There's so many, and I've made them, and you've seen them, so we're good. But
well, I know you feel bad because we haven't been showing off our work, but remember, I've probably knit most of this in the last week and a half, and it's because I had a deadline and it's baby stuff. So I have a lot to show just because it's this big.
Right, knitting through like a champ.
Well, I'm spoiling her. She's my niece. I get to do that. So I'm excited. And I made them a blanket for their wedding and they both fought over who got to have it. So I feel like they will hopefully appreciate these things because if they're fighting over the blanket, hopefully they'll like that I made their kids some stuff. We'll see. Yeah. If they don't get any more.
So there. Yeah, but I've just been here. I'll show it off. But I have, and here it's on 2 separate needles. I'll show you what I did and then why I haven't transferred it to one needle yet. But it is a blanket. And I think I said that a couple of weeks ago, I was on vacation to Kentucky for the ARC trip. So I was thinking, okay, we're going to be in the bus going there. So I want a very plain project to kind of, just plain knitting, not even thinking about it. So what I did, so this is here, it's 2 panel sections. So I knit just this corner and then I knit a similar one. It's with Mandela yarns. So the plan is that I cast on 6 stitches and then knit, increase, knit, increase, knit twice, and I have a stitch marker in the middle, increase, knit, increase, knit. So it's a total of 4. So I'm increasing. So I create a giant triangle and then I am garter stitch grafting, which is what I did this morning, the sides together. So I have these triangles, which will eventually be a big 4 square. And because they naturally stripe and the stripes are pretty much in the same place, there's going to be, you can see along the seam that there was dark green on one side and only the dark blue on the other. But it should hopefully pretty much match up when it's all 4 of them together. So fingers crossed there. But yeah, it's been nice. It's just plain garter stitches. And I've had this stuff in stash for a while because I thought the colors were really pretty. So, and also, they also match the book. Those ocean colors are really nice. But yeah, it's like I said, it's something that I don't have to think about, which has just been nice lately. I've been binge watching TV and TV that I want to focus on. So it's like, okay, good, garter stitch. I don't have, and like with the Papa hats, I mean, they've been somewhat consistent sellers on Etsy. So it's like, all right, well, those have color work in it. I have to pay attention to that. I don't want to pay attention. I want to just something that I can like stress knit while paying attention to my stories. So, well, yeah. And so yeah, I'm gonna stick these both because they're on 2 different needles. So I'll stick them all on the same needle. And man, grafting this together was a pain in the butt. And I am never very good at figuring out how long of an end I should leave, but it was way too long. And every stitch you're like pulling like yard lengths out like 3 times. That was not wise.
That's
Like, this is taking forever. But no, I did it. It's good. We're gonna make it.
good.
Yeah, it's, I mean, it's acrylic yarn. It's nice. You know, it's baby blanket size, so this will go to somebody eventually. But I just,
Yeah.
think it's
I was
fun.
going to ask, is it for anybody, or it's just you're working on it because you can and then you'll have it?
Right. That was my thought. That, I mean, might as well. Everybody all the time be having babies. I can just pull this out and be like, here, have this.
See, now you're in that age group where yes, that's happening. I'm on the other end where like people's kids, one of my very good friends, her son turned 15, I think, and I'm going, how?
Hmm.
How are you that old? Like, for real.
Right.
But what are you gonna do?
I don't know.
So
I'm just sitting here like, might as well. I mean, and like I said, you know, like I have the quilt, which is basically a garter stitch quilt. And the Quinn's quilt is almost exactly this, except this is the basic construction concept of this, of the other quilt, but without any frills to it. Like, this is the basic amount of increases for a quarter that will be grafted together, that it's not the colors or anything else. This is, I mean, as simplified as I possibly could be.
cool.
But,
I like it.
yeah, I try.
Good. So I think we're done with knitting.
Well,
And and Anne and I have not talked about what's happening in the world on here in, I don't know, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. How long has it been? It feels like forever.
last week was Birdie, which was a lot of fun. Previously was Cody before
Cody.
that.
And Devery.
And Devery, yes.
So it's been 3 weeks. So yeah, I mean, hasn't been forever, but it feels like a really long time. So I guess we can start with the biggest thing that everybody on the internet is talking about, and that would be Elon Musk. And if you've been living under a rock, he bought Twitter.
Which is, I don't know, it's really funny to me because it feels like a slow Newsweek story that I've been going back and forth on this. Like, no, this is a pretty big deal, but also like, this is really what's grabbed everyone's attention is what Elon Musk is doing. But anyways, you were saying.
Yeah. No, that's like one of the biggest things that's been happening. And I see there's a lot of back and forth about if it's good, if it's bad. I mean, every liberal that I follow anywhere is like, I'm deleting my Twitter account, blah, blah, blah. And dude, the guy hasn't even taken ownership, I don't believe. Like, slow your roll. Like, it's not going to overnight turn into whatever you think it's going to turn into.
Well, also there's just the mentality that Twitter is the most important thing to a lot of people. Like, how many mainstream legacy media sources, it's like, do they go out and find stories? No, they look at Twitter, which is weird. It's
right.
I don't know. Like I said, I've been going back and forth on this issue because it's the back and forth between, yeah, but Twitter isn't real, to no, it does have an appreciable effect on the political realm, because it was the New York Post when they had the Hunter Biden laptop story, and that was shut down from Twitter, and Twitter is how a lot of people get their news. And when that was shut down from Twitter, not for any particular reason, it was a factual story. It came out as factual afterwards, and that people that there was polls after the election saying that if people had known about the Hunter Biden laptop story, it would have changed the election. So it is a straightforward, real world result of this generally toxic social media platform that people put a lot of personal value into.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's exactly what it is. It's toxic. And it goes, it's like what we talked about with Birdie last week, where because people are behind their computers, they feel like they can say anything. And I think that they're scared that that's going to change. But what Elon is saying is, no, we're just going to not also squelch the other side.
Right.
Like, if like he's talking about actual true free speech. And so I don't see how that's a bad thing.
I know.
Necessarily.
And the amount of people just going wild about that, like, we can't have free speech, that will cause people to do horrible things. And that, you know, these people genuinely do not trust the will of the people. They don't. They go about how democracy dies in darkness, and we have to do this to preserve democracy and fortify the election. As what was that? That wasn't the Times. That was what, Newsweek? I forget. They're all the same after a while. But the article's like, yeah, we saved the election. We fortified it by doing what we want. And just has been like, anytime, this is an old time argument, okay? When the EU was formed, in the after effect of World War II, it was formed by people who said that democracy is how Hitler happened. So therefore, actually having the will of the people is not a good thing. Okay, so they did it so they were separated by the will of the people, that elites and experts would sort of be in charge of the EU. And how many people are out there now saying, like, well, what would happen if we just let everybody say what they wanted to say? It's like, well, I would hope if people were saying bad things that there'd be discernment enough to realize it, and they don't trust people to have that discernment. And also that that free speech is such a threat to them, that also the idea that having people you disagree with on your platform is such a shocking thing. It's like, you know, it's Twitter, right? You know, you don't have to follow people. In fact, you can block them. It's amazing.
Yeah. And I love the argument. One thing that I've seen a lot of liberals saying lately is, oh, you say you're so for free speech. Well, then why did you block me? Well, you have absolutely any right to say whatever you want. That does not make me have to listen to you.
Mhm.
If you're going to like degrade me or things I believe in, I have the right to not listen to what you're saying. That doesn't mean that you don't have the right to say it. And that's what they kind of don't understand. They want it to be this, I'm going to shout at you until you listen kind of thing. Whereas we go, no, you've called me a racist 6 times. We're obviously not going to get along. So I'm just going to go on. It's not my whole life. I have a life outside of the internet, which is what I think some people struggle with. Like,
Right.
it's, but yeah, that's one of the big things I've seen. Oh, well, if you're so for free speech, how come you blocked me? I don't want to listen to your shit. I don't know. It's kind of simple in my mind.
So there's this, it's an old Audrey Hepburn, Fred Astaire musical, and called Funny Face. And it's one of my favorites. It's, you know, light and corny, and there's Gershwin music, and Audrey Hepburn is lovely as always. And there's some good tap dancing scenes. But the entire premise of it is that Audrey Hepburn is an intellectual and Fred Astaire is a fashion photographer, and she becomes a model for him. And she has sort of a made up philosophy that's entirely based on empathy. And it's a very reminiscent of the current woke thing, but it's in a light context. They're not too serious about this. But she goes on and on about how you should have empathy for everybody. And he's like, yeah, but you didn't have empathy for me. Your empathy is a little one-sided for me, honey. And that's a common theme throughout this musical, that, you know, you have that struggle back and forth. And I feel that so often, that it's like, well, I hate Elon Musk and everything he has to say ever, but me saying that and me being outspoken about that, that is kind. And it's like, well, look, you're certainly allowed to disagree with him. I mean, okay, him being for free speech, absolutely awesome. But also, I'm not like a super fangirl. I think Elon's out for Elon. And
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing I wanted to talk about with this whole thing, because like, I got into an argument with one of my followers at one point because I posted a meme of him I'll put it up here for you guys. He's conducting an orchestra, and it's all of the one woman you see screaming, "No!" And I put it up because I thought it was funny.
Mhm.
And I got yelled at for having a sense of humor because Elon is the devil. And I didn't agree with how the person brought it to me, but there is merit to what they were saying. And I was thinking about this, and it kind of happened with Carlin. So this is what I think. As conservatives, we have been kind of left on the wayside. We have been, called names, and we've been all different things. And so anytime somebody comes through saying, "Hey, I agree with something you said," we're like so desperate. We're like the puppy that hasn't had enough love, that we run over and we like try to sniff on them and rub on them. And yeah, you can totally accept people, but I think that we have a habit of running too fast and getting too excited because somebody threw us a bone.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I think that he's out for himself. I also think that he truly believes in free speech, which is a cool thing.
Right.
I also don't agree with some of the stuff he's done. And I know he's like buddies with China because he needs to be buddies with China to make batteries for his cars.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we can think he's doing something that's okay. It doesn't mean that we think everything he does is great. And the reason I mentioned Carlin too is because she wrote the article where she was like, "Hey, Trump supporters aren't all bad." And us as knitters, because we had been cast out of the knitting community, were so excited to see somebody who was a liberal who was identifying with us that we all ran over to her and we all got up on her, sniffing and rubbing and jumping up and down, and she's kind of batshit crazy. And so
Yeah.
I think that we need to be a little bit circumspect with how we can appreciate somebody seeing things our way or agreeing with us, but that doesn't mean we need to also go all in on them,
Right.
because Elon's out for himself, Carlin's out for herself. These people are trying to make a name and get numbers and followers. And I mean, obviously Elon doesn't need any of that, but it's the same mentality of, who is this for? It's for me.
Right. That it's like you have a new convert and you immediately want to make them a leader of the movement. It's like, maybe that isn't wise.
Right.
Maybe I'm not saying that you don't sit down with them or you're not friends or whatever. I'm just saying that it's like, Carlin was instant and then she was a part of Walkaway. It's like, and she is insane. Maybe
Mhm.
maybe Walkaway shouldn't have let her speak for them.
Right.
Not that
I
her
mean,
story
but
isn't interesting or people weren't interested in hearing it at the time, but then it's like, oh, a lot is coming out in the wash.
right. And I think that there's a difference between accepting somebody. Hey, anybody can come up to me and say, "I want to know more about what you believe. I want to know more about this or that." Super great. I'm not saying ignore those people, but I'm also saying, before you turn into best friends with anybody, before you become Elon's biggest supporter, before you
Before you buy
know,
the t-shirt.
right, just like, okay, another thing that somebody told me, I think it kind of applies. When I met my husband, I was falling in love really fast, right? And one of my coworkers said to me, "Take it slower. Walk in with your eyes open. Look around. Decide if being in love with him is a good place for you to be." And I mean, obviously it's a very emotional thing, but now that it's been many years, I understand what he's saying. Like, go in, go in, be excited, enjoy yourself, do fun things, but also don't be super naive. Like, go in, look around, make sure that if you're still in this place in 20 years, if you're still married to this guy in 20 years, it's a place you're going to want to be. And that's what we need to do with these people. Super. Come in, be my friend, but don't be my best friend this second. I guess that's my point.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, with again, the Elon Musk thing specifically, so he comes in and he's like, "Okay, I believe in free speech for everybody. Awesome, with you for it." And then he says, "Okay, and I want the algorithm to be open source so everyone can see what's going on for a more transparent platform." Like, okay, cool. I'm again into that. And he also made the point that to verify all people on Twitter, and I may not have been specifically the word verify as in blue check mark, but as in to make sure you're an actual human with an actual name. I'm like, okay, on one hand, I get it because that, cuts down on anonymous troll accounts, but like also that's a certain level of having like a human registry on the internet, and I'm not for that. I can see
Right,
why you do that, but also I'm like, a
right,
little weird because with Elon Musk, I always go back and forth between like, okay, he's brilliant and he's a thinker, and I appreciate that, and he's an innovator and new ideas, and certainly we need all of that. And he's a guy who will look at a thing and make it work, and someone who can think on a very large scale ideal sort of a thing. But also he's the person who put chips in monkeys' heads so they could play Pong together. And he thinks that the brain, because brain processing is faster than computer processing, that we should hook our brains to computers.
right. And
So it's like,
this
on
is
one hand, I get what you're going with here. Like I can see your line of reasoning, but also I'm not for it. Anything that involves transhuman computers, I know we're glued to it already. Okay, I get that, and I know that's a lot of people's arguments, and I understand. But also, it's like, let's
yeah.
pump these brakes a little bit. Twitter
And that's
isn't
what I
that,
mean.
yeah.
Go in, look around. You don't have to think everything he's saying is perfect. Go in, look around, see what it is. Decide if this is something you're okay with, something you're not okay with. But as far as free speech goes, I think it's good.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I think everything he's doing is good. And that's we as conservatives need to be slightly more discerning in who we align ourselves with, instead of just jumping in anytime somebody like gives us a little head pat. Like, we need to stop being so desperate.
Yes.
And I didn't mean to get off on that tangent, but that's something that I've been thinking about for a while, because it's what happens. We're like, oh boy, somebody came to our side, great, woohoo! And then like they don't really come all the way to our side, and then they kind of go back, and then we kind of don't agree anymore. But now we're in love with them. So now what do you do?
Right. And it's such an instant kind of, the Trump memer crowd. And the Trump memer crowd is fun, but it's very much an instant news cycle, and the next day you're forgotten. That it's like, okay, there was suddenly a rash of Nicki Minaj on American flags going around. Okay, that's funny. But also it's like, and now we forgot. And then Rihanna had a t-shirt, and then we forgot. And then all of these different things. And it's I'm here for you today and gone tomorrow. That we had the whole libs of TikTok thing, and which is another free speech issue of what did libs of TikTok do? They found absolutely insane videos, and then they had the audacity to post them without, it's like, oh, I didn't change this. This is just what people are saying, and it got popular. And they did it is internet journalism, but people are saying, I'm a teacher and I'm going to do this to your kids, and this is what I want to teach to your children in the classroom. So they just took that video and they boosted it, and that they're the bad guys.
Upset all of a sudden. Go figure. Right. And
right.
That's
and I mean but that's the thing though, that it's very, so libs of TikTok gets attacked and everybody talks about it, but what are we going to do next week? That the Canadian truckers, okay, the Benjamin Dichter guy, I don't think he has his money back, and he's the leader of the Canadian trucker convoy, and he's still putting out stuff, he's still talking about what's going on in Canada. But it's like, okay, but have we mentally moved on with what's going on in Canada? Because that is still a free speech fight. That is still a individual personal rights fight. What Australia? It's like, okay, so some things have loosened up in Australia. That's great, but it's still an ongoing thing. France right now, to touch on briefly, but it's just like, okay, so Macron has won the election. Le Pen, she got like 40% or something, which is very good, much higher than she ever had previously. So hopefully that will push the line in a good way. But it's like, okay, well, if France is not important this week, let's just skip to the next thing. That Ukraine, let's, go back and forth and talk about that. But, this week it's Elon Musk. So no Ukraine, no COVID,
I haven't heard anything about Ukraine or COVID, right, or I think I did hear something about the COVID shot for young kids, but I don't remember. But I do know that thank God Kamala is boosted and vaccinated and boosted, because she would be so much sicker if she wasn't. So that's important to remember.
Gosh. And okay, at this point, okay, on one hand, I'm very never forget the stupid crap the government pulled on all of us during COVID. Okay, do not forget that, because they did it, they'll do it again. Homie, don't play. But at the other time, I'm like, are we still saying whenever somebody gets COVID, is that still a thing that we have to tell everybody? You know, I want a list of every time all of my elected officials have had diarrhea. Like, you know, at this point, I'm like, I don't want to know if you had COVID. And I know that COVID is not as personal, but it's like, oh, well, she's sick. I'm like, oh, well, why do I need to know if you've had a little trifling cold? You said that you're fine, it's not affecting you. So why do I need to know about this? Is that a leading news story? It's like, you know, I had a bit of a migraine. Am I going to alert the media, literally alert the media about it?
Do you guys want me to show you the pictures for my colonoscopy I'm having next week? I mean, they always give you a printout from that. I mean, how much sharing are we doing? I've decided, actually, that the next time anybody mentions vaccine to me, I'm going to ask them if they are up to date on their colonoscopies, because I think a lot of people forget to have them, and it's very important. It's one of the most preventable forms of cancer. So there's your PSA for today. And don't ask me about my COVID vaccine, because we're going to start talking about some other stuff.
Right. No, really. And I know, like, there's so many issues going on at once. And I'm not saying that the Elon Musk thing is an important thing, because like I said, it's a free speech issue, and free speech is one of the biggest debates of our time. I mean, and it relates to absolutely everything else. It relates to compelled speech with transgender pronouns. It relates to whether or not you can freely give an opinion. It's about people losing their jobs because of opinions. It's down the line important. We've had, you know, several people on who've got canceled because of things that they have said, because free speech is not as valued. But I don't know. It's the hamster wheel of news that is sort of it gets me sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think Elon's good with Twitter. I'm questionable about some of the things he wants to do because of his weird brain technology stuff that he's into. And he also runs SpaceX and Tesla, which are in big with the Chinese government and with our government. So
that is true, though.
I don't think he's the player that maybe some people are acting that he's going to be, but.
Right. Though it is really interesting, the instant narrative switch, though, because not only is Dan Bongino's girlfriend, Jen Psaki, out about how now we have to worry about social media, this and that because of Elon Musk, but the federal government is now investigating Tesla, and Bill Gates has a short sell position on Tesla stock. And also, okay, Pinterest isn't something that I've been on a lot, because I know that it's a totally algorithm run, you know, crappy. I used to really enjoy Pinterest. I used to be really good at Pinterest, but now it's just, you know, it's no longer finding the people you actually want to follow. It's entirely run by, you know, what you've clicked on. And most of it is just Tumblr crap.
Now, I think the reason that I never used Pinterest like that, and I only go on it now when I want a knitting pattern, because it is an actually okay place to search for, like, oh, I want this knitting pattern, and then you can like find a picture, and then you can like, I want to see more things like this, and then it kind of helps you, like, but that's the only reason I even go on it. I know some women were making money off of Pinterest, and I was like, but how do you do that?
I don't know how you make money off Pinterest. It's a weird thing. But that you know, I remember I clicked into Pinterest once, and the first thing I saw was it was a Lawrence Fox post, but someone's reply saying like, oh, well, I'm a nurse and we're suffering and dying and you're just having parties and stuff. And I'm like, oh, great, propaganda. I love it. And it's amazing because I mean, again, I've been into fandom stuff. Like that's what I used to primarily use Pinterest for. I mean, yeah, I like pretty pictures and magazine photos and the rest of it, but it would be mostly for like nerd jokes and fan art and stuff. And just the hard line agenda pushing from that. I mean, we've known that fan world has been like that for a while. But anyway, so I log in, I look at stuff. I was flipping through like vintage comic book photos, something very normal. But even all of the suggested memes were not just liberal agenda pushing. If there was anything slightly conservative, it would be a cutting joke about it. And it was a lot about Elon Musk. And I'm like, I haven't searched anything on Elon Musk here. Nothing at all. And it was, oh, well, Elon Musk is, even though he's a billionaire, he just has the desperate stench of someone who's desperately trying to be funny on Twitter. And I'm reading this like, what is this? What am I looking at now? Again, it's a pushing thing. This is the narrative and you can't dissent. Whatever you thought about Elon Musk last week, this week he is the devil. And we want to make sure that everybody's on the same page, that he is the worst person. Everyone's going on about, he's a white supremacist now, which is not something he's been accused of before. Who would have guessed that? And it's like, oh, well, he wants free speech, and free speech, as you know, is a dog whistle for, the worst of humanity. And every single time, and it's the same playbook, and it always surprises me how quickly everybody is on it. Not everybody, of course, because there's plenty of people like us, but a lot of people are just, bam, I'm on this now.
Yeah, and why is that? I was going to say, you said you use it for fandom. Why is it that everything that we're into, like, crafting, fandoms, different things, why is it that all the liberals are the ones running the narrative? Is it because they shout louder? Is it because there's really more of them? Like, that's something I wonder about in my life, because
yeah, like, do they have more free time? But is it a promoted thing? Is it like, I'm just here like, okay, the stuff that I like is generally not liberal and not even a specifically conservative thing. I think like, well, whatever themes there are on the show, it's just, a theme.
Right. And I don't know if it's just because like there's one fandom I'm in that I just follow it for different art and things, but they're all very liberal. And is it just because people like me don't feel like arguing about it, so we just keep on looking for the things we're interested in and ignore the rest? Is that what it is?
Right. And then, I mean, for example, the most recent Spider-Man movie, which was something like the highest grossing whatever, that I was seeing a lot of memes with that. And I really enjoyed the last Spider-Man movie. I thought it was good. But that's the thing though. Part of the thing was it wasn't woke, there was like, you could barely have put some in, but it felt like an old Spider-Man movie that you have. It was there was like the emotional, it was, superhero action adventure, but the emotional level and the interpersonal relationships were really grounded. And it had the very Americana, every Spider-Man movie, it has a couple of, determined elements. There's always going to be a scene where Spider-Man jumps in front of an American flag for some reason. There's going to be a funeral. There's going to be, down the line. The bad guy is going to be something that Spider-Man knows personally, instead of just like, I came from space and I'm totally unconnected. That this is, constant motifs through the stories, and it hit everyone, and it brought in the other Spider-Man movies. Anyways, whatever. So I enjoyed it. Short answer. But no, all of the memes, or at least over half of the memes, were very like, oh, well, it is a liberal slanted joke. And it's that there's a lot of like, oh, well, there was one, there was, what's his face? In the movie, one of the characters from the Netflix series was in, and they're like, oh, the reason why he wasn't in it later was because he and one of the Spider-Mans would have fallen in love. And I'm like, no, like, there's no, like this is like it's all of the jokes are slanted in a certain direction, or all of the jokes are presuming that characters are gay that are not. I'm not saying you can't have gay characters, but if they're not, they're not. There's not. I don't know. It drives me nuts.
Yeah. I hate the rewriting of stuff like Spider-Man that has been around forever.
Yep.
Since before like our parents were born, and Spider-Man wasn't gay, just let it go.
I know. And also, I mean, and there's lots of other, again, I've been more into nerd stuff lately, and this has driven me nuts. But I watched the first episode of the Hawkeye show. I know that's been out for a while, but it's a misdirection again. I'm like, okay, look, I don't want to watch this. It'll probably be woke, but maybe it isn't. Watch the first episode. The show is called Hawkeye. The actual guy, Hawkeye, from the Avengers series, yeah, he was in it maybe 10 minutes of it. It's about this new sprightly girl, Kate Bishop. And one of the only comic books I own is Hawkeye with Matt Faction, and Kate Bishop is in it because I thought the art style was cool. But it's like, okay, but she's not an engaging character. I mean, maybe people like her, but like, I'm a quirky, fun girl and I kick people's butts. And I'm just like, I'm not into this. Where are the dudes? But
well, and before we started recording, Anne was telling me about this, and then I mentioned that my husband rented the new Matrix movie, and it was fine. I mean, it had Keanu in it, like the first one. It had whoever the chick was that was his love interest in the first one, but then all of the rest of the cast were, there was a white guy with blonde hair, but he was in it very little bit. But everybody else was Asian, Black, Hispanic, which is fine, but it's almost like they have their casting bingo card, and well, heaven forbid we have we got this white guy in it, so now we've got to fill in all these other things so that we don't offend anybody, so everybody's happy. And
yeah, but that also, I don't know, it makes it worse for me, because at some point you wonder why there's even a white guy in it at all. Yeah. And okay, so talking movies, I went to see Secrets of Dumbledore, and it was such a bad movie. Like, again, agenda pushing. It's like, oh, it's going to be all about how gay Dumbledore is. And I'm just like, this is just not good. It was bland. It was poorly set up. Like, they weren't clear on what their goals were. Like, yeah, we have a plan, but the plan's not to have a plan. This is great. And I'm like, you didn't introduce you didn't even say the names of some of these fantastic beasts. You didn't say why they were important before you saw them, which would have helped the plot. And they have this one character like Lally, and her thing that she's an American charms teacher. I'm like, okay, that's cool. But the entire thing, you did not see that she was a cool character. Everybody told you she was a good character. Everybody said, oh, how wonderful you are, and this and that. And she's not an engaging character. She's terrible. And it's like, you could have introduced your character in a way so that she is interesting, so that who's just like introduced so poorly. But no, she was obnoxious, and she was, I don't know, like, they made an emphasis of how good she was at charms, but there was nothing that she did that was even slightly interesting. And her accent, she had the worst come and go accent. I would have rather listened to the Missouri Deaf Choir. Like, it was painful to listen to. And there's some bad accents in the Fantastic Beasts movies. I'm like, y'all aren't really Americans. Okay, I can tell. But oh gosh, it was bad. Hair, terrible. It was good from the front, but the back, I'm like, what's going on there? How is this accurate? What's going? Anyways.
Did she sleep on it maybe? Sometimes that happens.
I don't know. It was like they were trying to do something interesting. Like, yeah, we're going to start a trend. I'm like, no, that's just not good.
That's not a trend. And Anne was telling me also that even if Johnny Depp had been in it, it still wouldn't have saved the movie, because he was one of the better things in the first couple, right? Like,
well, I thought, okay, so I didn't like Mads Mikkelsen, but like, he was nothing. He was totally flat. And I'm like, well, I think Johnny Depp would have improved the movie. I think he would have brought a little bit of like sparkle to it. because he is very charismatic, and like I said, Mads Mikkelsen just flat, nothing going on. And it just drove me nuts because there were so many. Okay, so you have the first Fantastic Beasts, and then the second, they kind of changed the plot a little bit. But with the, like, any connection between the plot of the previous movie and this movie, I had to sit and think about to connect. Like, there was like, oh, so we're going to do this. And I'm like, I can almost see how that kind of connects, but also not really.
So you telling me about this reminds me of my husband and I watching that Matrix movie.
Right.
Matrix came out when I was like graduating high school, I think, like, okay, 20 something years ago. And so throughout the movie, we're like, did this happen in the first movie? Did that happen? What does this got to do with anything? Should we have watched the other movies first? We were lost. And the thing about the Fantastic Beasts movie, though, is it was a big deal when it came out a few weeks ago. Everybody was like, oh, you know, J.K. Rowling's a TERF. And so even if you love her stuff, don't go see the movie because it doesn't separate itself from her TERFdom. And you're like, you can't just say, I like the movies because I like the movies, because if you pay money for it, then that's endorsing her viewpoint and blah, blah, blah. And it's a situation where I totally would have gone to see it or paid money for it. But now I've heard that it's so terrible that I have other things I can do.
You know what? Y'all can disagree with me. Y'all can like the movie or you don't watch it, whatever. I think it was a totally flat movie with no character development, no consistency from previous works. And I'm sorry, but Aberforth is a goat fancier. It's in the books. Don't think otherwise.
So we mentioned Johnny Depp, who has been in the Fantastic Beasts movies.
Oh, his Grindelwald was awesome. It was scary. It was charismatic.
He was good. But what I was going to say is that his trial has been on TV for what, a week, 2 weeks now, and there's some crazy stuff coming out of that. And if even half of it is true, then feel bad for the guy. But it begs the question, if we can broadcast the entire Johnny Depp trial, why didn't anybody broadcast the Ghislaine Maxwell trial? Like, what is going on here? Are we so, as a society, we're so brainwashed to not think for ourselves that we'll just sit here and watch this Johnny Depp thing like little monkeys and not even ask questions about where's the rest of the stuff?
See, and again, we were talking about this a little bit before. I disagree with that slightly. Okay. I definitely think that we should be paying attention to everything, the Ghislaine Maxwell trial, definitely. And I think that that was a very quick brush under the rug. But also, I think the Johnny Depp trial is very important because, I mean, it's been on the internet for ages, ever since the previous trial that he had in England. And it was very much defamation for him, saying that, you know, that he abused Amber Heard and he was a horrible human being. And it was believe all women, me too. You know, I can't believe Johnny Depp is such a horrible person, and all of his roles were canceled and all of that. So from, you know, anytime anyone is like, believe all women, I'm like, I'm sorry, have you ever heard of To Kill a Mockingbird? Because it's important. It's like, listen, certainly to all women, but it's like, you don't just believe anyone out of hand because they're a woman or because of any other factor. It's like, you should look at the facts, bring forth your evidence, look at it, consider it certainly, but don't just believe out of hand. That's not how justice works.
No, and those points are good points, because really, I hate the believe all women thing. Yeah, you should listen to people who have a valid point. But the whole Me Too thing, I think that, but the problem with the believe all women thing was that we were supposed to accept what people said without any evidence, no matter what. And that's the issue. And it's not, I think that it was an opportunity for people who maybe had been in situations that weren't ideal to exaggerate, to throw their ex-partner under the bus, to help themselves by putting out a story that maybe wasn't completely factual. And I'm not by any means saying that everybody who was part of the Me Too movement was a liar, not by
Right.
any means. But I think that whenever you put a blanket statement out there, it goes back to what I was saying about Elon and everybody running to accept him and rush it. No, use your brain. God gave you a brain because he wants us to use it to think about things and this mentality of believe all women, run over here and accept this person. It's not normal and natural. And your points are valid about why this trial is important. And I don't deny that, but I also, why aren't more people saying, where's the client list from Maxwell? Why didn't we get to see this? Where
There
is all
was
the information?
plenty of evidence with Maxwell too, and about the young girls they had, and about them torturing each other for the sport of Jeffrey Epstein. Okay, there is evidence and there's lists and there's everything else, and you can read a fair amount of it. Like it's out there, and it's like, is anything gonna come back?
Nobody cares. No, instead we want to know about how Johnny Depp's finger got cut off by a vodka bottle that she threw at him. Bad situation. I'm not saying it's a good thing.
Certainly.
But the other thing impacts hundreds of people, maybe thousands. And this is a dispute between a couple. Like,
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, okay, we're all falling all over ourselves for this dispute between this couple when there's an issue that is so much bigger and nobody cares. And I don't know how to get us out of this mindset. I don't know. They throw us a crumb, we're so pleased. I don't know.
Right. And no, I'm with you. And I mean, you can definitely focus on two different things at once too. And this has been an ongoing issue. But yeah, I mean, like I heard a couple different people say this with the Kyle Rittenhouse thing. It's like, why pay attention to Kyle when, you have the Epstein trials going on? And I'm like, no, self-defense is important. And just like, Johnny Depp being abused and then just insulted and had his career ruined it's not inconsequential, but it is, I don't know, like we were saying before, it is the media narrative of things will be framed in this way, and to break out of things being framed in a certain way is very difficult.
And actually, I think there is something really important about Johnny Depp. The more we're talking about it, the more I'm thinking about these things. And a lot of people think a man abuses a woman, but there are many ways that women abuse men. And so for that situation, I do think that it's good that it's out there. But
with the whole Will Smith thing and the way that his wife treats him, it's like, that's bad.
Yeah, no, that's not a normal person response. And it was absolutely triggered by his wife. And I have lots of questions about them. I've been to a lot of therapy. I have a lot of questions that yes.
Right.
So anyway, I guess that's all we have. I mean, Anna and I could go on and on. We have, as much as we enjoy having guests, we haven't had the opportunity to just talk about what we think about things. And I think I've missed it a bit, Anne.
I know, it's a good time.
So next week, we are going to have Callis. I am not entirely certain how to say their name. When they're on, we will find out for you. But we're having a yarn company come on that dyes yarn that is inspired by women of history. First ladies, other historical figures that are famous and prominent and have made a difference in the world. And so we're really excited to talk about them. And we have a little something. They sent me a little something for you guys. I can't wait to show you. That'll be fun. And as always, you can find us on YouTube, Rumble, Instagram.
That's right. Check us out. And again, check out our sponsor, Lynn, Chicken Lady Fiber Arts, for her beautiful, I'll grab it again, for her beautiful yarns. This is again, Deprogrammed. Our promo code this month is PIK Deprogrammed 20 for 20% off your order. So you can get beautiful skeins of yarn like these. through her website. And she also has, you can sign up for her newsletter to get notifications for her new colorways. She does a banned book advent calendar that the pre-order is out for, so that's exciting. Check her out.
And if you want to get something after April's over, use the code PIK Mayday 20 to get 20% off your order, because her code changes every month to keep you guys on your toes. Make sure you're listening. So if you're going to go after the 1st of May, make sure you use that one. And thanks for joining us this week. We will see you again next week. If you want a book that isn't woke, check out Cody Schlegel's Odyssey Tale. I didn't even get into the books I read this week. We'll have to save that another day because I've got rants. But so yeah, check out Cody, odysseytale.com, and thanks for joining us. We'll see you guys next week.
All right, see you then.
Bye.
Bye.